Hello. Hello and welcome back to my channel. We're doing a little bit of a run here as Castile, trying to maximise the amount of population we can get in our game as possible. It's quite a hard feature to know, so it's one that we really have to work hard on and work together to figure out how much we can increase, especially with plagues and pandemics coming down the line. So starting a Castile game, we need to look at our rivals. So we have many possible rivals. Aragon hasn't rivaled us yet, so I'm going to recommend we go for the Muslim nations in this one. Have a look at the research. Now, we don't have access to a lot of the institutions yet. So what we do have access to, let's quickly change a certain audio level. What we do have access to is literacy. Now, literacy is very important as it feeds back into our monthly process for our research here, as you can see. This is really worth focusing on. RGO size is very good for Spain too, but there's nothing here that really directly helps to support population, which is what we're sort of focusing on this game. When you're appointing your cabinet, you should consider the age of your person as well, because not only is it an investment that you're doing essentially for the long term, but if you focus on those stats and go for someone older, then you're likely to have them die prematurely and waste that investment. So we've got Celestino Chavez, for example, which is a bloody brilliant name, but it's essentially a solid investment as he's got great stats, but also he's quite young. He's going to last us a long time. Now, what do we want to do? So we are sort of focusing on population in this game. So expelling people and doing that cycle of a settlement and keeping that population below 10% for expelling is not the worst idea in the world. However, we are going to start by just working on our legitimacy and our stability, I believe. Get ourselves healthy and stable before we push a lot further. Now, it's always worth promoting ahead of the cabinet if you've got the money, especially if it's someone young, because you're buffing their cabinet efficiency, which is how fast they do their policies. For Chavez here, it will cost us 5 legitimacy and almost 200 ducats. But as long as they stay in the cabinet, don't cause any scandals, which can happen, it should reward us. You do also, however, get us a little bit of a negative modifier, but it's not horrific as you get your estate satisfaction up, which isn't the worst thing in the world. Let's have a look. Yes, 25% efficiency in your cabinet. Can't lead armies and navies, though, which isn't the worst thing as it prevents him from dying. So, yes, let's chuck that in. And for you, we've got strengthen government. Both of them are now working on our stability and our legitimacy, so keeping us up to date and going. We'll have a look at our thoughts later. Albeit it doesn't really affect us. It does give a little bit of nobility power, but there's not very many nobles in these provinces anyway, so it's not the worst thing in the world. We do need to see if we can source ourselves some gold and silver, however, for our minting. But we'll come back to that. The first thing to do when you start up a new game is absolutely to look at your estates. You should do this by considering your values, because you should be picking estates and their privileges based on which values you essentially want to progress towards. So as Castile, we're going to want to get towards centralization quite quickly, unless we want to go down a decentralized route. But considering our capital is in the center here, we want to get land proximity as much as possible. So centralization and its proximity cost reduction would be quite useful for this. Traditionalist is all right. It would help us with our stability costs at the moment, but we do want to get down innovative as much as possible because it gives max literacy, which obviously increases your, as we spoke earlier, your research as much as possible. And cultural influence and embracing institutions are very strong buffs too. Spiritualist versus humanist. There is an argument because it's going to be quite a chill, quite a population run. Tolerance to true faith is going to be quite good, and just converting people to so we can have 100% unity is going to be quite useful. So whilst humanist is often the best if you're playing quite a wide empire and you're looking to expand as much as possible, in this case, spiritualist is going to be quite good for us. Aristocracy versus plutocracy is quite a hard one because plutocracy is pretty much the best one you can get for most nations. However, it's really hard to push towards in the early game. So you've got the debate of whether you actually push towards aristocracy, just so you're not trapped in the middle of no positive modifiers and no negative modifiers. At least with aristocracy, you've got possible nobles, which will then buy more goods, invest in your economy, have more money to put back into your economy, and essentially be there, obviously, with their increased power and discipline, which is great if you're fighting. Serfdom is useful, but only in the early game. So it's always a debate of whether you want to go down that route. In this case, having a good amount of labourers, how does that affect our population? It's going to be quite useful. Free land, cheap food. We'll have to see. These ones don't really matter in terms of our objectives. However, capital economy versus traditional economy. We're so far into traditional economy and it increases our population capacity at the moment significantly. It might be worth just keeping with it. And individualism is going to be better here, having our pops migrating fast into the areas where we need them. So I think it's definitely worth us giving the, unless it's already not really done, which it might be. Yes, it is. The one I was looking for is where is it? Free mobility for the common people. That one is very good. So, Irene, do you think pushing aristocracy in the beginning to go merchant republic is a good move? Ultimately, it depends on who you're playing, really. As I mentioned earlier, it's really hard to get plutocracy quite early, unless you're quite a centralized nation, like if you're playing Holland, for example. It's really worth just trying to get as far down as possible, because there are a few little buffs you can go for, like plutocratic ethos, building rights, sortition. These are quite hard to get though. So if you're going for a purely trading nation, I would like Holland. I would really just push it and try and get as far down as possible, even if it's quite a hard early game. Whereas someone like Castile, I think it might just be worth sticking with aristocracy for a bit. See, I really wish there was a bloody music player in this game already. We seem to have lost ourselves some tunes, but hopefully it fixes itself out. And Elon, thank you for the compliment, much appreciated. I'm just trying to dispel some knowledge, so if you're enjoying this stuff, continue showing your support. It's much appreciated. So let's head to our estates. Stability decay, agenda opinion. See, this is quite a risk and reward one because you can empower your nobles too much and cause issues for you later down the line. However, it does give a good amount of loyalty and some good buffs. So I'm going to head for that. In terms of the other ones, we've got... we don't want to push down navals. We want land to essentially get as much proximity as we can at the moment. Regimental. Same logic for that one. We'll lock that in. Let's have a look at the clerics. Now, I believe, let me just check, I said spiritualist is going to be better for us. Yes, it will. So we will push down spiritualist through the, where was it? Well, embellished works of faith is going to be useful, as it gives tolerance to true faith, which will be very good, and centralization in helping us with our proximity. Same sort of logic with that spiritualist one. There we go. Clergy and administration, that'll be useful for us too. Now, our burghers, this is the hard one, because we have that debate we spoke about earlier of plutocracy versus aristocracy. However, we're going to be building a hell of a lot of buildings in this game. So building cost is going to be very useful to get reduced. Same with monthly development. That's going to be very useful. Because if I show you, development has a huge increase on your food production, your population capacity. And in this game, we're going to be focusing on getting as much population as possible. So it's very worth getting your development up as much as possible. Now, let's avoid going below 40 legitimacy, as this can cause issues like a succession crisis or something like that. So we really want to avoid going down that route. You can automate your taxes here. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it. I prefer doing it manual. But just keeping your loyalty as close to 50% as possible is the optimum scenario here. Castile starts with a very good economy, so we don't have anything really to worry about. And we can take a short-term deficit to increase our legitimacy and stability, because they give big buffs. And if we can get them and just keep them, rather than wasting our stability and legitimacy, it's worth it, and it's worth the investment. However, if you're struggling for money, you can tap this down and you will just pivot back to your normal values if you're even on 0 for stability at least. So our navy, we're going to pump out here. Actually, we're going to actually send it to our north coast. So we're going to try and get as much maritime presence up here as much as possible. There we go. Now, if you didn't know, your regulars actually increase their control as they go around. So if we have a look, well, I can't show you because we're on the capital, but your regulars do increase your control. There you go, friendly armies. And it goes for your maximum control too, see. So we have horses here. This city here. We'll send our regulars here to increase the control a little bit. It does seem small, but everything adds up in this game, essentially. Trading is an issue at the moment, Icon. It's essentially they've got their trade maintenance a bit too high, and they've done a few patches in terms of changing it and trying to optimize it. But ultimately, they haven't found the right solution for it yet. Like, it's very easy if you're Castile and you've got all these fancy goods to export. Like, we've got everything from silver that we're obviously going to want to increase, salt, silk, saffron, gems, and we really don't have to worry about that one. But if you're a country, say Muscovy, and you're just stuck in the middle of nowhere, no markets easy to export to, the current changes are going to cause you issues. So at the moment, the game is really weighted towards how good your RGO is, essentially, and that takes away from the skill of the game. So I'm not really sure if that is their best option. If you didn't know, there's this button here, send carrot to Prussian Crusade, which is very strong. It means you can send your young people off to fight in battle, essentially, and you can use it to kill off the people you don't like, essentially, or try and increase the stats of your generals and your staffers, and it's really strong because if they come back, and they most usually do, I haven't had one die yet in over 200 hours. They get 30 military skill, which will take manual here up to 100, and that's humongous. Yeah, regular. It's not much in terms of your armies increasing your control, but it is worth it. The game is, like I said earlier, the game is so complex. It is crazy. Like, the skill floor is huge, the skill ceiling is ginormous, and I'm guaranteed there's thousands of things that even I don't know, and I have only played a few hundred hours. But that's why I always say we're sort of learning this together. We need to be quite collaborative about this and just try and figure out as much as possible. So with our starting economy, we should really focus in our high control provinces, but we need to get, there we go, we've got the building debuff here from our masonry. So you get a productive efficiency modifier for your RGOs in the province. So for example, in Valladolid, we've got wheat, fruit, wine, and wine. So specific burger buildings here that are going to be very useful are Distillers Guild, as they use wheat and wine, as you can see, wine there, and breweries. I'm also going to chuck in a Naval Supplies Guild. yeah, we're going to need a jewelers as well. And luckily, we've got a source of silver in the north as well. Castile starts with 2 separate markets, so it's careful keeping an eye on both. As we're focusing on the north, it's prudent to automate the south for now and just focus on the north until the north is stable. So we get the silver RGO going, which is quite cheap, surprisingly cheap actually. It's the lumber debuff, brilliant. I mean, I always recommend subsidizing your masons. As you can see, they're not very profitable. So if we want to keep our building debuffs, it's worth keeping them subsidized. Here in this province, we've got beeswax. What is beeswax used for? Oh, I'm going to kick myself. And horses. Horses are very good. Nice profitable RGO. Lumber. Wool is very good. And I always recommend a few market villages, even at the start, because they fix your economy gaps quite easily. They are automated, essentially. So if you have a tool shortage, they can swap over the tools, or a jewelry shortage, for example. They are very, very good. What's also important to note is that your country is essentially divided into building into certain subsidies. So they can build at different times if they're in different segments. So you don't have to only do one thing at a time. In terms of roads, how is that? We're not going to build too many roads early, actually, because if we're focusing on our population here, it's really prudent to know that roads increase your plague spread by 75%. It's ginormous. So you should really be careful about what roads you build, essentially, before the Black Death, even if they are the best thing for your economy. Yeah, I don't think your regulars have any maritime value, but your ships definitely do. Like if you stick them in a sea zone, like I'm doing up here, they will increase the maritime presence. At the moment, it's negative 0.02, but that will increase shortly. Maritime presence is really important to focus on. Now, in terms of our population, we can increase its growth by just getting a few market villages down. As you can see, you've got this large food storage in province modifier. That's essentially based off your overall consumption and how much food you've got in the province. So essentially, this is going to be quite useful in provinces where you have pre-existing low food consumption, because it's easier to buff as it scales based on your consumption, and low food storage. So here we have 700. Here we have 700 again. Come on, there must be one around here somewhere. See, I reckon a market village or two here would be quite useful. 750. 350. Perfect example here. So if we get some market villages up, we can increase our food storage. You see it gives 50 food capacity, and that will increase our population growth in this province quite significantly. Same with the settlement building here. There's nothing we can do in the north with our settlements, but we can do them in the south. Now we've got some profitable RGOs here with salt. We've got horses there. Where else have we got? So that's beeswax, clay, wine. Let's build a few there. That's brilliant. We need to get our prosperity up as much as possible. That really buffs your population growth. And then just sort of fix our market issues. So we've got wool here. So if we do a few spinners guilds here, we can do a tannery here because we've got livestock. See, don't get me wrong, you don't have to follow this, but I always think it's very useful. Because any productive efficiency you can get in this game is a bonus. Definitely a tailor's guild. Brilliant. Can be targeted in a jihad. Sure. Intervene. Sure, we know about that. Naval supplies. That will sort itself out through automation. Right, let's go for our trades in the Burgos market. Now, your pop satisfaction, which you can see in the top left here, affects your monthly prosperity and your control. So we want to increase this as much as possible. So let's have a look at our Burgos market and see what sort of staple goods we're missing. So steady grains, fruit, tools. Okay, we can increase this quite quickly with our economic spiral. But unfortunately, we need to let our trade capacity go. So we'll start the game and see how it goes. Let's try and ally Navarra. We can see if we can get him diplomatically. For Castile, it's always worth allying the Papal States as well, for obvious reasons. Get a spy network in. Ooh. Well, that's good to know. They all hate us. Brilliant. Could conquering high population areas in Morocco be a viable tactic to increase pops? Yes, absolutely. But it depends on the issues we might have with assimilation and conversion. We'll definitely get round to that. At the moment, I just want to stabilize our economy, and then we can get down to the fun parts of it. So our starting king, if I remember, he's not great. Have we got... So all of your heirs get a trait, as I'm sure you guys know. However, the issue is that these aren't my heirs. My heir is this young lad here, because all of these four are bastards, which is bloody brilliant, I know. But nothing we can really do about that one. Need to remember to increase his education as much as possible. If we want to increase our ruler's stats quickly, there are a few tips we can sort of cheat ourselves out of that a bit. Basically, as you call your parliament, there's always agendas that can increase the stats of your ruler. So if we make a load of fiefdoms, they can really quickly stack up those buffs and increase our ruler's stats, essentially. So it's always worth making vassals in this game. Absolutely, because they are just so strong. Historical subjects are always better than non-historical ones, as they don't have to record a province. However, I don't know if I want to give something as big as Galicia away. It is split between two markets, though, and the trade goods aren't amazing. I might regret this. We can always change it later, but I'm going to start with releasing Galicia as a fiefdom, which essentially means that we are on their throne. Custom subjects as well. See if we can get just a few. There might be a bit of an eyesore, but on the Aragonese border with some bad... yes, bad RGOs there. This will be worth taking land in Africa for, just to spam a few out. But if we want to increase our ruler stats quite quickly, it is worth it. That's a big old province. I don't know if I want to give that away. Hey, good little event. Right, so we need to focus on fixing our market as fast as possible. So, merino wool. Yeah, that's good. Great. Brilliant. Let's get a few. RGOs are really strong in this game because they don't require any like tools or any production process to do it. Havers. Oh, we'll take legitimacy. You're paining me, Havers. Ah, I forgot to do the trades. Let's jump in and do some trades. So we would like a bit of gold, sugar, we'll get some of this going until we've made it ourselves. More sugar. Oh, thank you, Portugal. And just try and make ourselves a bit of a profitable market. Like exporting wool when we've got a huge surplus is going to be very good too. And I always recommend leaving a tiny bit on automation, just so your market can fix itself, essentially. Why are they trying to kill all my cabinet ministers? This is really annoying me. Oh, God. The legitimacy is not going very well, but it should sort itself out. To release the subject the same... no, not especially not at the moment. It can be. But obviously for this land in... Oh, for fuck's sake. Measles is brilliant. Not good for the population at all. For this land in Iberia, we'll want to integrate it just as soon as we can get some proximity. But I really don't want to make any roads at the moment because we will just kill ourselves when the plague comes. And to my knowledge, I mean, I don't know if you guys have figured it out. I can't figure out a way to get rid of a road yet. If you can delete roads, there's a solid argument for just deleting all the roads in your entire nation when the plague comes. Unfortunately, the only way I can figure out of how to delete roads is through an admin command. So, which obviously isn't ideal considering the game state. We don't want to be cheating, especially when we're trying to do Iron Man as well. I might regret that. Oh, smallpox and measles. Brilliant. Game's going so well already. Right, I need to leave a little bit in the bank just in case we get some more bad events. But I'm minting a bit. As you can see, our maritime presence is now going up from our navy just being there. Masonry. Oh, that should sort itself out. We did subsidize our masons, if I remember right. Give it a good check. Yes, we did. Brilliant. So we've got lumber in this province, which means if we make a carpenter's here, it should be quite efficient. I love how I've just said we need to keep some money in the bank and then spent it straight away. I swear EU5 gives you a huge spending addiction. Right, we need to get the better education for him as soon as possible. Right, get rid of our unprofitable trades and try again. So we've got a good trade here, albeit only in small quantities. The Book of Hunting, brilliant. Always take a good event. The good thing about making market villages is that legal code, centralization, efficiency of cabinet, and what we've currently got is legislative efficiency, which does help you for AE. So yes, we'll swap it. Why not? Yeah, market villages, they send their labourers to your adjacent provinces, so it's very worth making them. They are one of the strongest buildings in my game, and they are buffing them in the next patch as well. So, well, these bloody events are murdering me. We love that. I would recommend these market villages to hell and back. They are brilliant. Especially as they increase your population. So what is our food storage looking like here? Not amazing, but we do have some pop here. So if we get a market village here, it'll be useful. To get a few settlements down here, however, which will be useful. There you go. Oh, we need wild game. We must have wild game here somewhere. That's a crazy good not to have. See, I really wish the forest village allowed you to get wild game. That'd be brilliant. Unless it does already. Let's have a look. No, it uses it. Brilliant. Okay, so we are going to manually take a little bit of our trade back to get some wild game going in the Sevilla market. There you go. Brilliant. See, our peasants are actually making a good building for us, which is brilliant. A fruit orchard, since we have a humongous fruit issue. Now, how are we doing for... Oh, we've still got a humongous carpentry issue. Okay. Well, that is solvable. Luckily, we start with about 1 billion cities, so lots of places to make them. Cultural tradition, estate satisfaction, stability, or research progress. Definitely research progress. Strongest thing you can do. Always take that when you can get it. See if we can get some gold in here. Why not? So we need some mercury for our hospital. I mean, I always recommend, you know, high population provinces getting hospitals up and ready for the Black Death. We know it comes around in 1346, so it's worth preparing for it. Aha! Now that's a good event. 3 gold. And perfect time for our cabinet. Not a cabinet, a parliament. So, interesting mechanics to know for your parliament is that if you make it in your capital, which for us at the moment is Valladolid, it increases you towards centralization, which is what we want to do. So we'll make it there. If you do it somewhere else, for example, Palencia, it pushes you towards decentralization for the 6 months of the parliament. So we have conduct a census, which is very good for population growth. Whether that's worth it before the Black Death, however, I'm not sure. So I think we're going to go for develop the interior here, unless there's anything else. Develop the interior is probably the best one here. We get development, which helps us towards population. We push towards land, and we get urban building cost. Now, with our current masonry surplus, we're going to get some very, very cheap buildings from this, which will very much help our economy. So as you can now see, we are 10% from masonry. Okay. Let's see if we can wait for that to come down a bit further. But there should be. I mean, I was very much hoping of some very, very cheap buildings. Let's check the Sevilla market while we're here. Yes, see, they've got 25 cost buildings. So we can make a few here. So Sevilla, you can have a carpenter, why not? Now, these aren't going to be brilliant as they don't have much control, but it's definitely worth having this market up and running when possible, especially with a merino wool out in the picture. Labour supplies, yeah, 25 a building is crazy. We do want it to pass, however, so that is a huge risk, but we're going to fucking do it. Why not? 50% less noble levy size. However, nobles are not your biggest levy source anyway. If you have a look at your population, your levies, they mostly come, see, we only get 30 from our nobles anyway. They mostly come from your peasantry at this stage in the game. So let's take a look back here. How are we doing for masonry? 36 still, which isn't bad, but it's not in the spirit of the debuff we're trying to get. As you can see, there is effective supply and demand are equal at the moment. So we can try making a few extra masons. However, I don't know if it's going to be worth it, but we can try. So if you do them on stone and clay provinces, you get the productive modifier, which is always useful. Then we'll just do 2 and see if that helps. But until then, unfortunately, in terms of how our cabinet is, I think we're just going to have to push through. Brilliant. Now, what I do hate is this bloody tool typification. It's ginormous. And they keep popping back up. Like, to be fair, you shouldn't take this many loans. Let me caveat that, because it's not worth it. But to get this guy a good education, I think will be worth it. So calculated risk. Brilliant. We have got a good amount of development, and we got some good buildings built with that debuff. No, the plague is hard. Isolating the country, I don't really know if it does anything. It's meant to keep the plague out, but if you have a look at the actual modifiers, and I'm sure I'll show it in a few years when it comes up, I don't take it because I just think it's one of those ones that helps you essentially push yourselves towards certain values like traditionalism, for instance. Or the one that is worth it is that 15% disease resistance for your entire country. That definitely reduces the amount that get hurt. So same with building hospitals in your big population areas. Masonry. Oh, we do have a big masonry crisis. I wonder why the demand is so high. I guess we are building quite a lot at the moment. Might just have to firm it. So in terms of your debt, I wouldn't advise paying it back straight away. Wait until you get quite close to these months remaining. So we need to save a bit to get this one going, but we aren't in any short-term issue. Still got cheap RGOs from our lumber surplus, which is brilliant. Hey, a bountiful harvest. Food production and unrest. Brilliant. Just keep working on our staple goods here. The more like food goods, for example, staple goods like food, fruit, stuff people use in their daily lives, we get is really important because it increases their direct satisfaction. See, we're keeping this negative trade here because it's still bringing wild game into our market, and we need it for our population buildings. In Burgos, let's have a look. I'm meant to be managing this rather than leaving it to the AI. We have a huge love for sugar, so if we keep importing that, our population are going to be happy, especially our nobles. I always find it's worth doing your trades manually. You can figure out what works and what doesn't, but it's not an exact science by any means. As you can see, this market village is already making a decent profit and giving some good value to our economy. So I really recommend you look at them in your game. Got jewelry surplus. You can specifically, they're very good for jewelry. If you're playing someone like Russia, as I spoke about earlier, that just can't make jewelry, no matter what they do, they are very good because they obviously directly make it. Oh, this is a painful event. Let's see if we make something worth our legitimacy. So we can, it gives us 10, we're at 94. So we can only go up 6. But if we give an estate privilege away, we can get to 99, and then a 10 will be worth it. So something like control over the coinage, very good for us, because we have silver. And then spend it, it'll push us a bit more in debt, but it'll be worth it in the long run. And as you can see, I'm going to have my spending addiction continue. Right. So we no longer need this guy on strengthening government. So we were speaking about our population earlier. And a good way to do it is check where you've got your settlements. Now, we've got our settlements down here, I believe. They might have auto-ended already. They haven't here. So we are at quite a bit. So where is this? Palma de Rio. So if we spell people in Palma de Rio, this province now has a migration of attraction of minus 2.6. So people are going to be spawning here because of this settlement, and they're going to be pumping out to the rest of our country, essentially. So if we could actually min-max, let's think. Is there a province where we can just get 1 billion of them? Yes. As you can see, the spending addiction is not easing up. But we're going to ignore that, and I want to hear no questions or queries. So if we now get our settlements here and then start spending people from this province as a whole, it will work out much more efficient. Get a few market villages up as well. Maybe get a granary in Sevilla, or oh, we've already got a few. Brilliant. And now that should essentially be a population farm for the rest of our country now. 3 settlements, just pushing it out everywhere else. So we just need to make sure we have ample jobs in similar type of markets to essentially make it worthwhile. Like a Tailor's Guild here, for instance. And I'll do the same in Cordoba. Now, luckily, we've got our burgers and our clergy making stuff for us up here. Which is always useful. Elan, 20 prestige, brilliant. Stability, yeah, let's get pumping it out now. Keep focusing mostly on our high control provinces. And mostly the capital, because it's 100, so you get literally everything you put into it. So unhappy estates don't need to know. Truce don't need to know. Employees, it will sort itself out. Feast of Fools. Peasant attraction, why not? Hey, New Age. So, is there anything here that buffs our population? Well, cost of court is good. Interest, considering my spending problem, definitely useful. Proximity cost. Religious war. I think we're going to go with admin, but we'll check the others. Maritime. Privateers. Diplomatic reputation is always good. People relations. War score cost. I don't think we need that one. Battles. Army tradition. Cavalry power, very strong. Levy combat ability, also very strong. Levy size. Navy tradition. That Navy tradition buffs maritime presence, by the way. I didn't mention it in the video earlier, but it's definitely worth noting. Definitely admin focus. Now, because we've done that, we should theoretically have a bunch more technologies to go down. So what are we working on at the moment? RGO size. Cool. Remove that from the queue. Institution growth. And then we're going to jump over to the Age of Renaissance and start pushing down here. As you can see, completed the Prussian Crusade, gives you a hell of a lot of stats, 10 admin stats, 10 diplo stats, and 30 military ability. Comes back to us, and we get Army Tradition, and both of them survived. And like I said, I haven't had one die yet, so I don't know if that's a paradox issue, but we are not complaining one bit. Nobility literally is useful. Cost of court also useful. I think for us though, we're going to push down here. RGO size, literacy for your actual people. Stability. Yes, brilliant. Well, that is hella lucky. We've just got a marriage union with Portugal. So the heir of Portugal is now the heir of Castile as well. Yep. So we should get Portugal in a PU as long as we can hold on to it. Brilliant. That is hugely lucky. We don't need to go and waste loads of men fighting for it. So our debt will be coming up, yes. So we'll repay that one. And to keep an eye, pay it back when you're quite close to the months remaining. If you extend it and then repay, you're wasting a lot of money as you have to pay them for the full term. You don't get an early payback disadvantage or a discount, if you will. Prestige here. We're already a kingdom. So we can't think about upgrading to an empire, unfortunately. But if you do have a lot of prestige, that's something you can do as a normal nation. Fruit is still very expensive in our nation, as is silver. Now, we're getting quite close to the Black Death, so it's worth keeping in mind what we want to do about it, because it's going to cause us issues. Now, the tool price spiral is also a very important thing to know early game, because tools are basically used in all of your early game industry. So by making more buildings, you're going to be using more tools. So by making more tool factories, you're fulfilling that demand and creating more jobs and using more primary resources. So let's chuck a few tools out there as well. We don't want to over tailor, even though they are quite profitable. You don't want to get under 25% satisfaction with any of your estates, because then you can't raise them into your levies. And obviously, if we are attacked, but say by Aragon or a jihad, we need our good people essentially. So as you can see, our population is decreasing here because we're expelling people, but it's still going up really fast because of our settlements. See, we've got 2.7% population growth in this province. That is crazy. Got a fear. Yeah, Spinner's Guild is quite useful here. Typhus, brilliant. Right, I think we're going to cut spending on stability now, just for the moment, and save it for some hospitals, as we do have the Black Death coming. Obviously, the Black Death is what you... apparently, this endless stream of diseases anyway, is what you have to contend with in the early game. Gift to the state. Hey, we like some money. Right, so luckily, at the same time, we've got our new parliament as well. So we do need more lumber. So forest exploitation isn't a bad one. We do have to note, though, that we do have the Black Death coming. So don't overinvest into your RGOs beforehand, because your people will about essentially get wiped out, really. Yeah, we're going to go forest exploitation. And is this good? It's okay. We'll grant this privilege. This is quite useful because you can use your parliament to get a free privilege, essentially. You grant this one to the clergy without having to spend legitimacy and wait the time for it, essentially. So, and you get rewarded for doing so. So it's a win-win, really. Same with increasing opinion or support for aristocracy. However, we can get a buff if we take it. So what would be useful here? Potentially additional taxes. However, there's usually some shocking early game laws that we want to change. Closed borders could be useful. Levy law. I mean, that's not brilliant. Already changed that one. Surprisingly, there actually isn't that much to really improve. I mean, because of our specific circumstance, I'm going to change that one, but it's not that big of a difference, really. That's going to cost us some legitimacy, but it's worth it to pass the act. But also, because of this act, we've got cheap forests for the next 6 months. So, might be worth getting a few new RGOs going, even if the Black Death is barreling down towards us, because they are 23 ducats, so, like, why not, really? Right, hospitals. That was the next plan of action. So, hospital for you. Repay that. We can afford 5% support. Stem that one. Automate our trades for a bit so we can just focus on the incoming issue. That is the Black Death. Like I mentioned earlier, the exponential effect of saving as much population as possible. Oh, God. Really? We're being hit by a major plague before the Black Death has even started, which happens in a lot of games, to be fair. Smallpox, brilliant. Let's just get as many hospitals up as fast as possible. That is the only thing we can really do. You can build them in towns and towns and cities, your hospitals. But obviously focus on where you've got the most population. It's a new event. I haven't seen this one before. A Moroccan traveller. Interesting. They will learn of Iberia. We'll get some ducats. Professional armies, brilliant. You can go on the hospital fund. Hospital. Where else can we make it? Up here. Up here. Up here. Brilliant. Getting quite a lot of art this game, which is always useful. In the early game, especially focus on your resources just near your capital, especially with the Black Death looming over you. It's not worth overextending. However, especially for staple goods, which we are struggling with at the moment, I'm going to do some overinvestment into them. But it should increase our... I'm going to change you off just quickly. Is that where we want to develop? No, we want to develop there. Get some temporary control down there. Let our population recover before we expel them again. Get a bit of free stability. And start making some market villages around the place to increase our regional food storages. The Black Death has arrived from Elton. Elton John. Bloody Elton John, what has he done? The Rocket Man has started the Black Death. Absolutely brilliant. Once again, I'm just increasing our food capacity, and that directly affects your population growth. And market villages are a brilliant building anyway, so it's really worth making them, as long as you've got a stable economy like we do. Yeah, it isn't fixed yet, so we do have to be careful and continue to exploit the right RGOs. Just ensure that we have a good baseline to rely on, essentially. Now, it's not worth reinvesting into them yet because we haven't got sufficient population to staff it. Now, do we want to back this? This is for 6 months we get antagonism. I mean, yeah, I'll vote for it. Why not? Doesn't really change anything. The Black Death is here already. Right. Oh, 20 development for hospitals. I didn't know that. It's good to know. Thank you. So it's not just based on your town rank. It's based on development. That's brilliant. So the Black Death is here. So whilst it's in your country, your ruler has a chance of dying. If you're a monarchy, I think it's 0.18. So we want to try and get that as low as possible by putting the court into hiding. Controlling the food market doesn't really do much, in my opinion, other than really stop all your food getting exported to dying people, really. Same with isolating the country. It's going to come in anyway. It is here. We just need to limit the spread. So expelling the sick is all right, as long as you've got money, which we do for pest houses. However, whether it's really worth the investment, I'm not sure. So we're going to definitely segregate the infected. That's really good. It increases your disease resistance, like nationwide. This actually makes people die faster, which isn't worth it. Scapegoat is actually quite good because it will push people to what we believe in. So essentially, you're blaming the Black Death on the Jews, essentially. Which is not great in real life, but in the game, it's all right. I might have been cancelled there. We'll see. Just need to be careful not to overdevelop as everyone's about to die. So what we're going to focus on in the short term is just getting a few market villages up and ready. So we're just ready for the recovery, essentially. Which is the important bit. Need to be careful to keep our nobility from going under 25%. We like fishing villages in our naval provinces specifically, as they are very good for maritime presence, harbour capacity, etc. And if you stack them, they get cumulative production efficiency bonuses, which is very good. But the one that is kind of useless at the moment is your farming village, really, and your forest village. I don't really see the point in them, if I'm honest. Now, we might want to make some iron for all these tools that these market villages we're spamming out are going to make. It's better to be proactive in this game than reactive. Otherwise, you're left with big discrepancies, essentially, that you have to cover up later down the line. And iron is a good resource anyway. It's quite a high price. It's 3 ducats. And we can probably use the opportunity. Oh, never mind. We are dying out already. Look at this. So the Black Death is absolutely mullering us. We just have to hope, essentially, that we've done as much as we can to reduce the damage. Which is why it's really not worth over-investing in your towns and cities right before the Black Death, because you will just have huge skill shortages down the line. Now, if you allow migration like we have, you can sort them, but it's still a process that isn't easy. So during the plague, I just like to make some market villages. It helps your labourers recover faster as you're increasing your maximum. and then they can flood into your mines and your farms and help you recover and stay at the right level, essentially. And we're getting a 33% decrease on building them, so why not? As you can see, we're up to 70% maritime presence in this sea region now, which is very, very strong. We can also join an order of chivalry, which just gives us free stats, which is brilliant. See, I don't really know if there is a negative effect of doing this, but at least at the moment, there isn't. Now, we've got a very lucky... That shouldn't cause us any issues. Air trait with a prodigy here. We might as well steal him from Portugal and take control over his education ourselves. Because if we invest in a good education for him, we can get essentially... What is he? He's gallant. That's decent, to be fair. A very good cabinet ruler for the rest of the game. And it's a genetic component as well, so his heirs are more likely to be prodigies, like in CK, for instance. Right, well, we are now in the midst of the Black Death. Everyone is dying. There's not really much we can do. But the peasantry seems to be doing alright, so just keep spamming market villages is essentially the goal. Oh, that's really good to know, Elon. Thank you for the tip. Like I said, I hadn't noticed that one myself. See, we just need to try and survive this as much as possible. Because it is everywhere. Right, so we have rural exodus and fleeing the Black Death. That is good, because in your cities, people die faster than in rural locations. It's a huge effect. So allowing people to get into your rural provinces as much as possible is very worth it. Now, our temporary control guy has done a good job. I would like to get you on something useful. I guess helping to stabilize the country again. And you can get assimilating people into our culture. Why not? Can't be a bad thing. You can see how quick your assimilation is going up through this. On the side. How are we doing in terms of our economy? Not great. Considering everyone is dying. Oh my lord. 1.9 million people due to the bubonic plague. No! Our amazing cabinet minister is dead. Ouch. Unfortunately, there's not really much you can do. I mean, unless you guys know any hidden tips for it, but 560k due to smallpox and 2 million to the bubonic plague is painful. But we got the hospitals up early, which is the important bit. I mean, while I'm here, are there any mechanics you guys are struggling with that you'd like explained live? Tarifa. Where is Tarifa? Well, it's down here. We don't really need control. Let's get some stability for it. Why not? What are we struggling with in our market? Still the staple goods, but that'll take a while for it to recover. Yeah, everywhere has shortages at the moment. So I guess the debate is now, we are pretty much over the Black Death. So we can start with a census and just start pushing that population up. So that is 0.5% population growth. You can see that here for the duration of the Parliament. We don't have to worry about antagonism at the moment, and improving relations, fine. A cheap market village? Oh, where is it? See, am I ever going to say no to that? No. So we do have to think about paying back our debt at some point. However, I'm still addicted to market villages. So, but that one took me 53 ducats, which is way too much. So we're going to focus on paying back our debt for a bit. Ah, yes. I knew that. Oh, well. Not really much I can do now in the short term. The prosperity, considering the Black Death has just ravaged us, isn't too bad. And prosperity is a huge impact on your population growth. Well, we can build a bunch of new settlements now, which is useful. Obviously, that is because everyone has just died of the Black Death, but still. Excommunicate Genoa? Yes, why not? I'm always down for that. So we've passed the census, which is good. I mean, that population is permanent anyway, but it's still good stability to have in the bank. We've got our debt coming up, so let's focus on getting as much money in for that at the moment. I might, considering raising the minting for a bit to help pay it off. Especially as we have to get a new cabinet minister. I will wait though until my heir gets in the cabinet. He won't be the best cabinet minister, but I can then use the parliamentary buffs if they come. Well, that's an interesting little heresy. The buffs that come to buff him up before he takes the throne, essentially. 10% max literacy is a humongous buff. We might consider that one. There we go. Let us get you. Is there anyone for you to marry? There is, but they... Ah, diplomat. Okay. The Doge has been excommunicated. Brilliant. Let us get him in the cabinet, even though he isn't amazing yet. We'll get cabinet actions to buff his skills up, which is always worthwhile. Granary, that's always good for our population growth. You might be better actually just developing the capital for now, because that helps us with our population massively. As you can see, the market villages, they're huge. We've massively increased our trade capacity. So in Burgos, we started on 12 and we're now at 20. So it's very much helping us out. I can't speak highly enough about market villages. I mean, I've done a few videos of them recently, so you guys might have noticed, but they are very, very good. Okay, we got 2.5 years until our next debt has to be paid back. So we don't have to focus on that straight away. So let's have a look at these guys. I made settlements here at the start. They're still a long old way off their population capacity. 3%. They delete at 10%, by the way, is what you have to be worried about and keep an eye on if you're trying to get as much as possible. So I think we just start making settlements around our country where we can find the places for it, especially if they're cheap in the market. And what do they need to be cheap? Masonry and lumber. Okay. So let's make sure our masons are subsidized in severe too. There you go. That was causing us some issues. And just continue getting as many as possible to get our population back up. The Black Death has royally taken us for granted. 2 million deaths from it, and 500,000 to smallpox beforehand. So naval tradition versus the naval value. So 2% isn't that much. Naval tradition, however, does give some decent buffs, but it isn't showing them to me. So let's have a look. There we go. So maritime presence, great power score, progress to naval, and morale. So yeah, a little bit worth it. There's a reason why we've got a navy up here increasing our maritime presence, because it is very much worthwhile. We can also, rather than just focusing on our settlements, because the Black Death is now passed and we've got smallpox resistance, it's very much worth it to start making roads. There is a road buff in the cabinet, or in the parliament, so we might wait until the next parliament and save up a bit of money, and then do a big old regeneration progress, essentially, like a HS2, if you will. If you guys don't know what that is, in Britain they're trying to build a big old train line, but they keep cutting it, and it's basically a white elephant. Even though if they actually did it, it would be a very, very good thing. But they are just useless at doing any high, big, strong infrastructure at all. But we cannot change that because we are kind of useless at building shit. But we're not here to see me moan about Britain. We're here to look at Castile. So we've got some good money coming in. Might be worth tacking up a bit on stability and just getting it up as fast as possible. We've got a decent amount of time left on our loans before it's worth paying them back. It's always worth running down your loans rather than extending them, just planning about paying them back, because you just save unnecessary extensions at 10% interest. You've got to think 10% interest. Luckily, it's not compound, but 10% interest on a 10-year debt, or a 5-year debt, you're essentially 50% extra you're paying back, and you've got to pay it back quickly. So you really need to avoid getting excess debt unless you are doing it for a very good cause. So earlier, a good example of that would be the education for our heir, because he has not turned out great anyway. But if I remember right, we have a lot of children anyway, so let the Lisbons suffer. We can't afford that shit. But we have got very lucky in this Castile game with the Portuguese Union, just for free. That is mental. It will definitely take time, Joe. We share the same name, so that's always useful. So I think we're going to be like best friends from now on. But oh no, that's not good. Sad. My bloody heir. He has just been murdered by someone. That is not good. So who's my heir now? Okay, he is decent. Right, we need to get him in our court and give him a good education. So just going off topic for a bit, that event, that we just had was someone murdering our heir. So we have a snake in our midst, essentially, and you can assassinate characters with a spy network. Like if I show you assassinate character here, you can just murder people at will, really. Like even their bloody king. you do get a huge amount of Diplo reputation for the hit, obviously. But from my knowledge, it is pretty much guaranteed, like you just saw they did to us. So what was their heir called? And I wonder who would be heir if Alphonse. I know we're nowhere near their succession, unfortunately. We'll leave that spy network alone for now. We can reduce our diplomatic spending now, at least. I did increase it to get a royal marriage for my heir, but that doesn't seem to have happened because he's fucked off into the afterlife. As have all of my bastards. They've gone to Navarra. So I suddenly don't even need this, really. So what can we use our... we can steal their thing, apparently. Brilliant. We can corrupt the... Never mind, that is not worth it. 80 ducats a month. Let's not do that. I believe Navarro don't like us. But we can definitely improve our relation and see where we go from there. Morocco's expanding into Granada, which is interesting. We'll definitely have to focus on getting some land there soon. So I think a spy network on... Oh no, they're subject. Interesting. They're not independent, sadly. Would make our life easier. We'll start getting a spy network and them going as well. Increase our diplomatic spending a little bit just to get some ticking diplomats and keep what we're doing already going. Let's see, we're going up by 1. Prevent annexation on Aragon. So who are they trying to annex? Mallorca. Ah, well, that's a good little way to get a CB on them. Let's get that diplomatic cap up a bit, and we'll go in on Aragon. A little bit ironic, we're doing a population run and murdering our population by illegally invading Aragon, but it'd be worth it. Gotta have some fun. Let's tone down the minting, otherwise the inflation will get crazy. Tone down the stability to pay for it. As you can see, our population is starting to go up a decent amount, but we need to get our prosperity back ASAP. Need to see if I can get some new people into my cabinet. He'll be decent because look at his stats at that age. Like, that's crazy. Wonder why our cabinet options are so slim. Let's see if we can... Hernando, will you join my cabinet? No. Okay, we'll wait some time on that. It's not the end of the world not having a guy for a year. Right, we now have a sufficient diplomat, so let's head on in on Aragon and smash the shit out of them. So we want to raise our levies and just annihilate them quickly. Put our ships in the sea. We don't want them getting... Sorry, at home, we don't want them getting absolutely demolished. We don't want to call a crusade, but we will take a estate buff for a few years. Why not? In the Lisbon market, we don't have sufficient naval supplies. Okay, not our problem at the moment. Well, it is, but it's not big enough to worry about. Get some more focus on those dyes. By investing so much in market villages, we've given ourselves a good leeway to get some good trades in. We just need to use them. Right, we've got a good amount of troops here. So if we just group them up, right, repay the loan that we were planning, extend that one. Let's turn the speed down a bit. Group them up, split it in two. Always remember to rebalance your armies, otherwise you will just get slaughtered for no apparent reason. We don't want to use our king as a general because that increases his chance of dying, and that would not be good at the moment considering our situation. We want to wait until our fancy heir is of age. So the war goal is Barcelona, which is up here. So let's be quite smart and push up and get our supply line sorted. If you just run straight for Barcelona, you won't have food and you will just get attrition to death. So it's absolutely worth focusing on your supply lines and doing it quite a concise way. Hitting pop capacity is definitely possible over the course of the game. We just have to be quite thoughtful about how we build it up. So often taking censuses when we can, not doing unnecessary wars and murdering the breeding age population, essentially. Having high food capacity. That's why we've been looking at these market villages, because they give food capacity. So if you look here, we're getting population growth and we're getting 0.4 because of large food storage in province. That is our market villages. Granaries work for that too, but obviously this is based on your consumption. So in this province, we have quite a lot of consumption. So the Toledo granaries are going to be very viable. But even in like a really rural province, you can have just a few market villages that really tip that modifier up because their food consumption is really low. However, obviously, the issue is that the more people we make, the higher food consumption we're going to have. So food might be an issue down the line, but we'll deal with that when we come to it. So we want to put our subjects on siege. So we're going to go aggressive. Fuck it. Hopefully they don't kill themselves. It is highly possible that they do kill themselves, but fingers crossed they don't. I don't believe we can't... No, we can't call Portugal in because it's only a... Oh, we can, but they will reject. Okay. It's probably worth improving relations with them. And then just slowly push into Aragon whilst maintaining our supply lines. We've actually got people behind us. Let's go deal with them. We're going to catch them on good terrain. As you can see, we have a -1 terrain modifier, but they haven't rebalanced their army, so they're just getting slaughtered. They really need to change that, I think, in EU5. Just having to manually press the button after you've won a battle seems tedious at the best and stupid at the worst, because there's so much scope for forgetting it and losing your entire game because you've forgotten to press one simple button. Now, I wish there was a way to send your vassals to target specific provinces like there is in EU4. There's still a lot they can work on in this game, but for a 1.0 Paradox game, this game is incredible. If you haven't got it yet, I would really recommend it. Is it ever worth to urbanize all provinces? Yeah, late game, absolutely, because you've got to think about where you get your economy from. A peasant economy is A peasant economy essentially is really good early game because you can stack your buffs with serfdom and traditional economy. But as you get through the game, you're going to be getting all of your money from your burghers, essentially. And that's why trading and plutocracy is so good late game. And I studied politics. I wanted to study economics, but I didn't have the goals. And I kind of regret not doing it, but I did study politics, and that has a hell of a lot of crossover. So if you couldn't tell, I'm British. I finished university last year, studied politics. And yeah, it has a humongous crossover with economics. So it does cross over. But you've got to think this game is the economy system is insane. Like, I always played EU4 as a bit of a map painter, and I think a lot of us did, just trying to get as big an empire as possible, world conquest, forming Rome, all that sort of stuff. But this game, you could literally just sit there playing Tool, and you're not having to do anything else. That's why you can literally play as a bloody bank. You can you can play as a holy order and be insanely overpowered. In an MP game I've got going, I'm getting absolutely dominated by one guy playing the knights and I'm playing the Ottomans because he can just have an insane number of regulars. But that's because of the economy. Like, the economy system in this game is crazy, and you can specialize it in all different ways. Like, Spain has the Merino wool modifier, and we can pretty much just make our economy insane just because of that modifier once we get it up and running. There are some issues with it not applying at the moment, so I don't know if we've actually got it in this game. But let's I think it's here. Yeah, see, it's requirements not met. I don't know because we've seen the event fire, so hopefully it happens later in the game or something. But going back to the point, the economics in this game are crazy, and every decision you make, there is an alternative decision that you could be doing that completely changes your game. So that's why we have to work hard to figure out what the meta is, figure out what the best actions are. But I'm kind of enjoying the game at the moment that there isn't a meta. You can do whatever you want, and there's different actions and different consequences for everything you do, as is life, I guess. But the skill floor and skill ceiling is stupid in this game, and that's why I'm enjoying just dispelling as much knowledge as I can, because I've played this game way too much, and it's only been out a month. Which seems crazy, it's been out a month already. But time flies. Life is short. So enjoy it by playing EU5. Paradox, sponsor me. Let's tone down our fort maintenance because no one's attacking us. I do like, however, in this game that toning down your fort maintenance doesn't just murder you. It does significantly reduce your fort defense, don't get me wrong, and your garrison size, but they are still there. And they aren't just instantly siege like they would be in EU4. Can we assault? We do have a breach, but they have significantly more men than us, and we're trying to preserve as many men as possible. Oh no, I didn't mean to do that. Well, that is a mistake. Aha. And there goes our breach. We do love a good misclick. Oh well, nothing we can do about that now. So what about you guys? Are you guys struggling with anything in the game? Is there anything you really enjoy? What are your thoughts on EU5 at the moment? How are you finding it? Oh, Morocco has intervened in our war. I'd somehow missed that. That's an interesting one. Okay, let us get the hell out of this war. What do we actually want from it? Just a bit of money? Yeah. Unless there's any hyper useful RGOs right on the border. Nah, just get some money and get out. Should have a truce of Morocco now, which isn't too bad. We've annihilated Aragon, given them some bad modifiers. Got some gold out of it. Worthwhile, I think. You finally unpaused and survived the Black Death of Scotland, and now all your buildings have no employees. Yeah, it's an issue. So that's why if you're interested, go back to the start at like 10 years ago in this stream when I was preparing for it. What you can do, I mean, look, if I show you, I've still got issues with my employees, but the Black Death's just ended and we don't really have that bad. You don't want to overinvest in your RGOs and your cities until the Black Death's gone, because you just lose all your burghers. Like if I had upgraded all my silver levels here to full, we'd just have issues. But I can now do that again because we've got Black Death resistance, we've got smallpox resistance, so we're not in any immediate threat of big diseases. Look like we've got 100% smallpox, 100% measles, great pestilence a little bit, black bubonic plague, a little bit of typhus, a little bit of influenza. We've been hit by every bloody disease under the sun, but the only silver lining of that means that they can't hit us again for a little bit. So we've got low noble satisfaction at the moment. So whilst I was hoping for roads, because it's probably the best thing we can build at the moment, sponsoring the noble arts isn't bad. We'll get an artist out of it. So we'll go aristocratic support. And just see how it goes from now. We don't really need any new laws. We'll inherit Portugal just naturally, which is really lucky. This here, a bit disloyal. That's not really an issue. Yeah, so it's a lot of it is preparation, but you can adapt to not having enough workers in your country. So, for example, the estates privilege of where is it? Here, free mobility for the common people. That's very good for enabling yourself to recover, as your peasants will automatically and your labourers will automatically migrate around your country to fill the gaps in employment, such looking for jobs. So if you haven't done that already, I would recommend doing that if you're struggling with recovering from the plague. Let's get our nobility taxes back up again. It's a crime they're not being taxed fully. We need to sort of revive our country after the Black Death now. So forts. So if we're about to get Portugal, there is really no point in having all these forts on the Portuguese border. Now this is a calculated risk because they could just run straight in and murder us. Brilliant. We'll take some army support. But the vast majority of our forts in bad terrain, it's just costing us money. And the more money, the more buildings we can make, and the faster we can compound our economy. So it's a slight risk opening up our borders to the Portuguese, but I hope it's worthwhile. I will keep these ones, however. Fortification map mode, that's a thing. Still got one there. I think that's sufficient to not allow us to die. Noble arts. I mean, I could get a CB, additional taxes. Our estates, are they profitable yet? So essentially your estates, whether they are profitable, you can see down here. See, they're losing money. So taxing them is not a bad thing because if they're not making that much money anyway. To be fair, though, the only one that's having a problem is our burghers, and we can do some investment into that. Larger levies isn't going to be a bad thing, but we're not going to fight a war soon. Law changes. Is there anything that we can quickly change in our laws to make ourselves much more efficient? Censorship might be okay. It would dilute our noble power. So to give us spiritualism, tolerance, true faith. Yeah, we'll do some censorship. I don't usually do that, but in this case, when we're just trying to go for a sort of population run, it's quite useful. There we go. We've got a nice new artist as well, a writer. He should give us some good rewards. Keep working our wool, because we have some very good wool in this country. Now, what buildings are going to be good for us? How long have we got on our debt? It's the important question. 30 months, ages. So the next port of call is definitely roads, because we don't have to worry about pandemics anymore. as we've just been murdered by all of them at once. So you can check your effects on your road prices here. We don't have a big sand debuff, but we don't really have much sand to do anyway, so it's not the worst one in the world, but the other ones are pretty good. The more control you get in your surrounding provinces, the better it is, because you get more resources, you get better funds, you get essentially more levies and more of your own nation that actually comes to you. Whereas if you're only in this part of the world, you are just not essentially aligned with the country at all, and you only get 20 control, and it's nothing. And that's it. And that's at max satisfaction because we've really been focusing on that. Local audiences is control. We can afford, yeah, we can afford the nobility to not like us for a second. Now, the estate, the clergy here are doing a very good building for us, which is a library. It's just reminded me that we should actually probably look into building a few of them. Oh, yes. Especially in our high population provinces. Now, this can give us a very good economic spiral too, because they require books. So by making more buildings that require books, we can then make more books, which then is a huge economic spiral in the 100 years before the printing press comes out. So I will queue up some scriptoriums when I can, but as you can see, we've got a decent amount of production efficiency because we've stacked a few in this province already. I don't want to take more debt though, so we'll have to see it as it comes. But our tax base is pretty much recovered to the Black Death levels-ish, with a pinch of salt. Our navy's still in port, so it's probably worth it getting out to increase our maritime presence again. Like I said, the navy increases it, so it's absolutely worth it. As yeah, there we go. We've got a huge books shortage now, but a lot of that is just because we're building libraries. So we will queue a few scriptoriums and see how it goes. This will increase, in part, our tools, no, our paper, our dye, and our lumber. So we have lots of dye. We have a decent amount of paper. It's probably worth making some more, to be fair. I'll queue up one of them next. And then lumber we're good for as well. Oh, we are out of religious law. Then probably Inquisition law. Construction speed. Why not? Get some paper makers going as well. New fruit RGO. Still got to sort out that shortage in our country. 3.3 magnitude earthquake shakes part of England. Insane. We don't get earthquakes over here, so that is quite new to me. But I mean, I'm in the south, so I'm safe. Not good for my northern brethren, though. The temptation to make more market villages is always there. I'm a slut for market villages. As you can see, our scriptorium price is going up now because we've utilized a lot of our masonry. So as you make your buildings, your demands on your masonry increases. So if you wait for your buildings to be completed, that demand goes down. Therefore, you don't actually have to increase the actual supply of masonry in your market to get the building discount. As you can see, even the market village is 50 now because we're just utilizing a lot of our masonry, which you can see in the goods tab. Yeah, effective supply equals effective demand. Let's repay that loan a bit early so we don't have to deal with it later. Yeah, still got expensive buildings at the moment. So let's take a look at the Sevilla market while we're here. Still got it mostly automated, but we actually get some decent profit out of it. So the Mr. AI is actually doing a decent job. But what can we do to get some more money into this economy? Tailors Guilds, always good. A Naval Supply Guild? I mean, we can do that. Just a bit surprised. See, these settlements are still pumping out humongous pop growth. So just need to keep an eye so they don't auto-delete. See if we can make any more roads up here while we're at it. Get a road to this Silver province going, the Cyan province, there we go. Roads are really, really important in the early game. Definitely don't underutilize them. Just make sure that you you do it beforehand, before the plague. Are we planning to... So do you think settlements are worthwhile after the Black Death? 1,000%. At the moment, as we were discussing earlier, everything is opportunity cost. So we only get a certain amount of gold, and we're sort of wondering what's the best way to spend it. Settlements are huge, because we need to get as much population as we can. That is the point of this run, because it's so strong. And we can build 1 billion of them. The issue is they're quite expensive. In terms of moving our capital to Sevilla, that's what I usually do in my Castile games. I don't know if I'm going to this one, because if you look at our population map mode, our high population is in the north, albeit quite a bit is going to Sevilla specifically. So I'm wondering whether it's worth us just focusing on the north for now and worrying about Sevilla later, especially if we can get our proximity cost ticking down. So I don't think so at the moment. I might consider moving it to Toledo and trying that out, because you see Toledo, it's got loads of these rivers, which means that you can just get a downstream effect for most of your country. But for now, we're going to keep it in Valladolid and see how we go. Our road costs seem quite a bit... there we go, religious war. So I did want to investigate that. There was a really good heresy that came up. Oh, no valid religions available. Sad. That gave some incredible buffs, and I would be tempted to switch to it. At the moment, though, we are loyal to the Pope. Let's go with that. Well, it suits us. There we go. We've got some building discounts again. And I will obviously use it on market villages. So how are we doing for... We start with feudal nobility, and for policies, we start with feudal nobility, which is traditional economy, which is decent for us at the moment. Loyalty to subjects, which isn't that great. Plutocratic ethos is quite strong, as is trade range. Jesus, we've got quite a lot. Tax efficiency. Royal decree is also very good for the centralization. We're slowly pushing to centralization, but we're still going to decent at the moment, which we do need to work on. But we're really far into aristocracy, so I don't know if pushing plutocratic is worth it yet. However, you do get buffs for being under 25. Debuffs for being under 25% crown power. So I think in this case it's worth us just working on our crown power and get it it up as fast as possible because these debuffs are quite significant. See, we're at 19.4% and we lose quite a bit of tax efficiency because we're just under the modifier. So we have some really good RGOs down here. How do we get any semblance of control over them? And the biggest way to do that is with a bailiff. So for example, our gems province there might, oh, it's a bit expensive. It's worth doing a bailiff on because we're not going to get control on it for a while through any sort of land or naval region. Same with this silver province here when I get a bit of money because they are very expensive bailiffs. But on your really expensive goods, it's definitely worth doing. You, unfortunately, because you haven't got any soldiers in that province yet, you have to do it from the building page, which is a little bit of an eyesore and a bit complex, but worth it to just get the bailiff. They give you 20 proximity in a province, which equates to about 15% control, which if you think in your really high cost good provinces like silver, like gems, like saffron, it's at silk, it's really worth it. And if I believe I'm right, they give you crown power in the province. Oh no, noble's power. That's not great, but it's worth it anyway for the proximity. We're about 2 seconds. I have returned and we've got some things to deal with. So we've got to fill our cabinet issue. We have some diplomats to use. So I wonder if we can get one of our... Oh no, he's not of age yet. That's sad. What can we use our diplomats on? Improving relations with England is probably a shout. They might be a natural partner down the line for us. Same with the Pope. Now I'm going to make a few more regulars. Why not? Crusader Knights are a very good early game. Just in terms of the quantity of troops you can get with them. Inquisition law. We want efficiency of cabinet 5%, rebel growth, pop conversion speed, but your estates don't like you a bit. Yeah, it's probably worth it for us. Our pop is rebounding a decent amount. Migration is being sort of heavily sifted into Sevilla, though. Unfortunately, you can't make a bailiff in your cities, so you have to... A bailiff in Cremona, actually, is probably going to be quite useful. I might actually cancel you to do it, which is an annoying little cost reduction, as we've paid more than we're going to get back for it. So be careful when you are building these type of buildings. But I think if I do a bailiff, rather than moving my capital to Sevilla straight away, if I do a bailiff in Carmona, it should give me a little bit of proximity because we've got a road and like a bridge and stuff in Sevilla itself, which will be very useful. You can't build them in your cities itself or your towns, so you have to do it adjacent to try and get a small adjacency bonus. It's not huge, but it's better than nothing. Toledo development, yes, why not? Can't be a bad thing. Black Death is still murdering people. It's killed 66.99 million people. mostly in Delhi. So it has reached India, but it hasn't reached China yet. So that number will go exponential when it does reach 1. Unless one's split, which is certainly possible. Now we are sort of raking it in at the moment, so I'm going to spend a bit more on stability so we don't have to deal with that issue down the line. Keep making a load of roads, maximize our productive capacity out of our core provinces as much as possible. Because not only do they increase your proximity, but they also increase your market access and your movement costs between provinces, which they're small modifiers, but they do add up, and it is worthwhile. Passive in political crisis isn't great, but we aren't really doing anything much with our cabinet anyway at the moment. Yeah, our proximity is tiny anyway, so we're just going to chuck it on the... Sorry, our prestige is tiny, so we'll just chuck it on the prestige, take the little hit for that one. It's not the best event in the world, but it's not horrific. So I've had lots of requests recently for lots of different types of videos. Is there anything you guys are particularly struggling with that isn't colonization? Because colonization is a clusterfuck. Jesus Christ, that would take us a while to get to get down the tree of, but it's one that we are working on. Balance the budget, why not? Get rid of our inflation. See, I'm going to regret this, but I want to get rid of my inflation. Yeah, we're miles off these institutions anyway. Now, our goal is definitely population in this game. So we can start looking at settlements again. Ooh, that's brilliant. So our heir is finally of age. So is there anyone that would be prepared to marry him? Well, let's get a diplomat and find out. We don't want him dying off this time. He can definitely join a foreign order and get some free stats. There's one noble in the court, but that is his cousin, so we don't really want that. There might be a slot in the cabinet opening when that 60-year-old dies. Just need to get him married, and then we can secure our bloodline, essentially. There we go. So, for your royal marriages, you can check their stats by hovering over the woman or the man on the right, essentially. So, these are only sorted by the ones who will accept us. You can do it based on stats and traits, trying to get essentially the best consort for your future cabinet when that guy takes the throne as much as possible. But you can also do it for, like in CK2 terms, just trying to win over PUs and alliances, like we did with Portugal. Now, that wasn't a manual action, that was just what the game started with, but it has resulted in us getting a PU on Portugal if this marriage union holds. So you can see that through your succession law modifier here. That tells you you're in line to get something. So Beatrice is 6th in line, so it's a low chance, but this lady is the direct heir of Forez, which is a French vassal. However, it is also important to know that for vassals, they take precedence over PUs and they can force you out of a PU, which is an interesting little vassal action you have. So when you're choosing a union to set up, you aren't guaranteed to get that land if it is already owned by someone else, essentially. So let's have a look at Scotland. That is second in line, the throne of Scotland. So why don't we try that out? We'll see if we can improve relations with them soon enough, and you never know. If a spy network was happened and the heir of Scotland was accidentally murdered, I know, crazy. Who would ever do that? We might be in line to inherit Scotland down the line. Mortal Coil, you struggle with learning to play tribal government types. It's very different. The Timurids are way too strong. They're like, if you play MP, they are way, like, always going to be banned and stuff because they are just mental. However, I would recommend giving the Golden Horde a go. They are obviously a very big old country and crisis-ridden, which sort of defects the point of, there we go, Black Death is over, but they have killed 2 million of our people, which ain't great. The Golden Horde is a very hard nation to stabilize. It's high risk, high reward because you can just die. Like, the way it works is if your army dies, your entire country goes kaput and just splits into a billion different hordes, like it did in real life. So it's a hard thing, but the regiments you get are insane. Like, imagine like winged hussars level troops in 1350. Like, they are, if not as strong, maybe even stronger than Timir. So it's definitely something to be aware of. But if you do want to try a horde, I would recommend giving the Golden Horde a go, because it is, you do have the great crisis on their hands where they are at war with literally everyone. Like, look in this game, they are just getting murdered, and all the Russian republics team up and attack them at the same time, and they get terrible events and succession crises constantly. But they can be stabilized. It's just very hard. So it's definitely a fun game to do. I'm not sure if there are any achievements for doing so. If you're a single player Iron Man type person, it's definitely worth a look. I haven't played the Timurids yet because they just seem so strong, especially being able to take land without like occupying it a peace deal. When the whole limit of EU5 is that it's really hard to get claims other than your parliament. But everyone has to enjoy the game at their own pace, though. That's the whole point. There's no point in playing a game that you're not going to enjoy. So if you much prefer playing big nations like Castile or England or France, go for it. Get good at them. Take it into MP and crush people. If you enjoy small nations like a tall nation, play Holland and get insanely rich. Ask to become our vassal. Brilliant. There we go. Free vassal. See, I assumed they'd rivaled me like they do in most games, but for some reason they've decided to be friends. So we're not annoyed at that. Let's see if we can do that with Aragon. Make them unrival us. Because if we can get the Iberian Union to sort of form, which means we don't have to waste people and money fighting Aragon, that would be a huge little buff for us. Now, let's get a few more settlements, as that is our goal with this game, to get as much population as possible. Unfortunately, our building price is still quite high. Lumber. See if we can get some better RGOs going in the Sevilla market. Might take a while to get up to speed, though, unfortunately. Just see, we've got 36 people tuned in. Thank you guys for tuning in so late at night. It's good to see all of you. If you're enjoying the content, please consider leaving a like or subscribing. It all helps. Like I said, I'm quite new to this, so all feels quite weird, but we're seeing how it goes. I mean, this game is so bloody complex, so it's always interesting helping people learn and learning stuff in turn, because yeah, the skill ceiling on this game is mental. So how is our prodigal son going? Oh my lord. He is brilliant. Look at that. If you're nodding off to sleep, 100 admin, 100 diplo, 75 military. And if we give him a order of chivalry, he will essentially be 100, 190. So what we need to do is figure out a way to get him on the air rather than Crown Prince Zhao Filiz. So we have favoured son succession. The issue is, however, there's no way to guarantee that Portugal will choose like our guy as the heir. But I think because he is that good, it is worth it. So we're going to take the hit and we're going to try it out. So we've gone to favoured son succession. So now our preeminent heir is the overpowered guy. But he is only the heir to us, not our vassals and not Portugal, which creates some issues. So we need to try and enforce our succession law. It might tick at the end of the month, actually. So he is now... Okay, he got our vassals. So Portugal. Unfortunately, I don't know if there's any way to ensure he gets on the throne of Portugal. Unless we sort of try and murder him. So if we make him a general, that will increase his chance of dying. Brilliant. And maybe make available for hire. Let's see if anyone buys them out. Ooh. We could maybe send them off to the New World. That could be an idea. But I don't know if you can send your direct descendant off. Ah, there we go. Cabinet minister is dead. We'll wait for the overpowered guy and then he can get in our cabinet. So how are we doing for our institutions? Crap. Brilliant. I guess let's keep plodding down the same horse then. Let's go for proximity cost. That's very, very strong. Cost of court is very strong. Max literacy. What else is good down here? See, this is all right actually. Legislative efficiency. That'll keep us going for a while. And then we can go down the military techs. It's a single player game, so we don't really need to go heavy on military at the moment, but I'll queue it up anyway, why not? Let's have a look, see if there's any really profitable buildings. Wool RGOs are very profitable. Interesting. Make a few of them. Why are they profitable? So I know we do have the merino wool modifier. As you can see there. It's not exactly giving us much at the moment though. A schism in the Catholic Church. Now this is an interesting type event. Essentially, the Papal States versus France over Avignon. Now we need to choose our side. Now I'm going to support Rome here because they are our ally. We will kind of want Naples down the line. Our heir isn't married. So I think we'll wait for someone else to become available. But that does now mean he can serve in the cabinet, which will be insane. 2 months until we can get the sufficient funds for that. Yeah, the Golden Horde are really hard, but it is worth it to learn the game, essentially, if you can figure them out. Because you're not meant to keep them alive. It's like the Byzantines in EU4 is the closest example I can get. Because it's just, you're not meant to survive. They're that overpowered that you're meant to die. Settling tribesmen to get your RGOs producing. Yeah, that's very important. It's quite different to playing an established nation like Castile, where if you have any tribesmen, you're just using them for your states modifiers, essentially. Whereas as the Golden Horde, you have so many slaves as well. Now this is interesting. The Byzantines are dying, but they're still alive for now. The Ottomans are getting a bit big, but they're not humongous. I do wish more random stuff would happen, but saying that, Poland has expanded into the HRE, which doesn't happen that often. Great Horde is at Moscow. Sorry, the Golden Horde. So, yeah, random shit is happening, it seems. So, more wool, as it's very good for our economy, apparently. And we can expand it cheap, as we've got, I think, sufficient lumber in our market. Yeah, sufficient lumber. Brilliant. Okay, let's pull you back quickly. Who do we want to improve relations with? Let's do it Hungary, why not? Bohemia. Who do we want to get PUs on, essentially? Naples. Leave one for fun. Ah, I wanted to get my heir on the throne, didn't I? So we'll worry about that in a second. So the Crown Prince Joachim is now in our cabinet, and he is bloody insane. So we should try and get him as the head of the cabinet as soon as possible. I'm considering going into debt for it, but I think that's a bad idea. Keep our inflation under control for a bit. Our tax base is above pre-pandemic levels now, which is good. A nice little recovery. Unfortunately, our population isn't. Yeah. But not really much we can do about that one, unfortunately. So we're going to pull back on... Yeah, we'll pull back on the stability investment for a little bit. He's arguing with his mother over something. I don't know what. Yeah, we're putting back on our investment for a bit because I want to get the head of the cabinet modifier done quickly without spending debt on it, essentially. So 2 months, and then we should be able to push hard into stability and legitimacy again. It costs us a lot changing that succession law, and we might actually lose the Kingdom of Portugal by doing so. But having such an overpowered heir, I think, is worth it. So it's going to be an interesting debate over which is worth more, but God King and God Heir is what I'm going with. Once again, you just make your head of the cabinet here in the little like purple hat button. So 25% cabinet efficiency. Can't lead armies. We'll take it. And because he's our heir, we get a huge buff for crown power. So 25% crown power, legitimacy, insane. I'll be completely honest, I didn't know this was here. So that is a huge buff because we're already at 28% crown power. So that means we're going to be going up to well, let's find out. 28%. Wait for the month tick. That's humongous. 25% crown power. I'm going to be doing that in a lot more games. See, this is a perfect example. Like, constantly learning this game. There's so much to learn. There's such a skill floor. Like, it's really interesting how crazy it is. Yeah, so we're now up to 32% crown power. That is a humongous buff. Probably worth a video on it, to be honest. And then just continue making wool, I think, for the moment. Buffing the economy up a bit. And then maybe a few settlements. Lumber's close to our proximity, luckily. As is silver. And we got a good debuff on it at the moment. Increase our cost of court again and our stability investment just to get that down as fast as possible. Now, why are we using ivory? We actually have gems in our market. Would that not make sense? Clever clogs in the jewelers. So now we're above 25% crown power. We get all these lovely buffs. And these stack up to 100%. So it's really important to just get as much crown power as possible in the early game. Now, let's get back on the population grind. So we want settlements. Especially if we're thinking of ever moving our capital down south or considering it. It's worth to get as much population as possible down there. So just keep on building. We will build back better from this bloody pandemic. Thank you guys for your ongoing support, by the way. It's much appreciated. It's getting quite late in the UK, so if you guys have got any last minute questions, chuck them in the chat and we will revive this save in the future. It's interesting. I mean, that crown power buff is a really good example of how you learn shit in this game, just in the most random circumstances. And that is a crazy buff that we need to all be using in our games, really. Now, to what extent is it going to be worth doing a cheeky war on the Moroccans? Because our levies have sort of got to a decent point. We've sort of recovered, albeit I don't really want to throw away all of my fighting edge people to malaria, because that is what you do have to contend with in these provinces. They've got a lot of malaria and it's not fun. You can develop resistance to it though, so it's not the worst thing in the world. You just essentially lose a hell of a lot of people while you're gaining that resistance. So when you're trying to get as much population back after the Black Death, it's not your best option, in my opinion, to go straight, hey, good little event, into the depths of hell, essentially, in the early game. I think there is a way later on to negate the effects, but it could just be an effect of building up resistance and keeping that going as much as possible. Now, wild game. Let's have a look, see if there's any way to get some more in this market other than just importing it. Unfortunately, we have to import it. But I believe it's going to be worth it. So there we go. Now with this settlement, that is our maximum amount of settlements. So that will be producing a lot of people. Quite fast, yeah, brilliant. We're enjoying that. See if we can build up ourselves a bit more. And we've got a lot of market villages around the place, so a lot of cheeky little food capacity buffs to our population growth. As you can see, free land, food storage. Free land is not dependent on your building levels, by the way. It's built on your population capacity. So it does seem common sense to think, oh, free land, there's going to be loads of buildings, but no, it's actually based on population capacity. So that's why sometimes upgrading a rural location to a city and urbanizing can increase your population growth by just having that population capacity from being a town or being a city, rather than the base buff you get from being a rural location, which is 10%, I believe. Yes, population growth 10%. Fibrous crop farms. It's an interesting little building to be quite profitable. Not opposed to building a few though. Ah, they want noble autonomy. Crushed them. We ain't dealing with that. We want our crown power. Hey, thank you for your support, guys. Much appreciated. We'll leave it at the end of this year. Unfortunately, this game is way too addicting. Albeit, I guess that's not unfortunate. That's a good thing. It means it's a good game. And for a 1.0 Paradox game, that's good. Like, dare I mention Imperator Rome and the shit show that was. My bank balance got drained by that. Bought the premium edition, and we saw no ROI from that. And it's 6 years on, and I don't think it's been updated once. Did any of you guys fall into the same trap and end up buying Imperator Rome? I really hope you didn't. But if you did, we're in the same boat. So a cheap cathedral in Sevilla isn't the worst thing in the world. But yeah, there's not really any really good ones at the moment. We're going to go for a cheap cathedral, why not? We can... So mandatory impressment is serfdom. It's not great. Balanced court. It's not great either. Okay, we'll reduce opinion. Our burghers, they do make good buildings, but the tax they're giving us ain't worth at the moment to give them a tax exemption. So I guess we're in a position, unfortunately, we're waiting for positive events at 49.2%. So hopefully we get a plus 5% event. If we don't, we might be a bit buggered. So this guy sees tapped out on the right. We've got full legitimacy. So we'll move him over again. What's he good at? Nothing, really. We could try and replace him, actually. Is there anyone decent that we can replace him with? No. Great. I guess for now, then, you can develop the capital. Why not? We've got a jewelry deficit by chance because since I know we've got a surplus. So we'll get some fine cloth going. Considering our huge wool economy we can build, it's definitely worth going down that route. Right, I'm going to leave it off for tonight. It's getting quite late here. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's much appreciated. And I'll catch you guys in a bit. Whoever's just said they love Imperator Rome, you're now banned. Farewell. Thank you for tuning in. I have PTSD from Imperator Rome every night. I'll catch you guys in a bit.